Hi everyone. It is Saturday night. I almost said Thursday night, and that's wrong. And I'm at home, and you can see my sort of goofy study area with a portrait of India behind me and Manet over to my right, and my whatever it is, little stringing beads thing that makes my kids laugh, and they tell me I should go back to the 60s or Berkeley or whatever. Okay. But what I want to do right now is talk to you a little bit about the story Sonny's Blues. That's the one we started the course with. I used it as a prelude. My tie here is a little tight here. We used it as a prelude to the course, and I want to say a few words about it. And I'm choosing the video format intentionally. That is, um, listen, this is a really rich story. This is one of my favorite stories, perhaps my favorite story in all of American literature. And it's a story that I think repays, infinite readings. You can read this once a year for the rest of your lives. You can read it with your families. And it's something I really urge you to do is, if you have children who are sort of like, getting in the direction of being able to understand this, you might share it with them or with your friends. This is this kind of story that has so many dimensions that it requires a social connection and social discussion rather than reading it alone for a class. And that's also one of the reasons why I wanted to do this video with you, because yeah, sure, I mean, I could have typed, and written you some sort of academic thing, but I think that's really beside the point, and in a certain sense disrespectful, because this is a story written with a man's full soul. James Baldwin, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the two or three greatest American writers. And I mean, I could talk to you for 10 years about that, but that's not the sort of thing we do in this class. This is some kind of a survey class looking at various kinds of literature in 2 and 3 weeks formats, and not kind of digging into the importance or the depth of any single writer. But one of the things that I find interesting, about James Baldwin is he doesn't write very many short stories. He's not too interested in the format, although he's very good at it. And I think there are a lot of reasons for that, but I won't go into them now. Okay, what I want to do is, because it's very important to keep these videos under 10 minutes, and I have a hard time doing that. Okay, so that's all supposed to set the stage. Now, I want to make about 5 points. I'm going to make them very concisely, and then I'm going to, of course, post this, and you can ask me questions if you like. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, first of all, this story is set in Harlem, which is in Manhattan, New York, and it's one of the many things it is account of the general feeling about the nature of life or the meaning of life of most people, or at least many people, in Harlem. And I think it's very interesting to note that the question of race, of course, James Baldwin is African American. The question of race doesn't come up so much in the story. I mean, it's definitely there, and I don't want to minimize the importance, but it is not a period piece about African American life in Harlem, or you have to really argue if you want to turn that into the meaning of the story. I see it as, once again, as a really careful portrait of life in the United States as the Second World War is finishing and as the Cold War is beginning. And it's about the way people feel. Now the question is, how do people feel there? Okay, this is the hard part, and to explain, because for many reasons. But what Baldwin is saying is that basically people have lost their sense of why they live. Okay, that there's in almost every segment, whether it's the kind of normal, the working class people, the middle class people, the more artsy people, the students, whoever you look at, it's sort of the same. That is, they're ready to explode because they don't know why they're living. And that's a really serious allegation, and it kind of goes against the way we normally think, because we don't really think in terms of how people feel about their lives, what they think about the meaning of life. That's a kind of question that's, we think is a sort of religious question, and we kind of tend to avoid it. But that's, sort of at the heart of the story. Put in other words, or in simpler terms, he's saying this is the way it is. They hate their lives. Okay, point number one. Point number two, and here, I almost forgot something. And the place is ready to explode. Okay, point number one. Point number two, and one of the reasons why I think this is such a great story, is that he takes this social situation and he parachutes it, so to speak, into a certain family drama. And so we learn about the sibling rivalry plus the whole evolution of Sonny's family, and it gets used as a kind of lens to understand this sense of the difficulty of living. Okay, so that's the second reason. It's easy to make a soap opera. It's easy to make a series. It's easy to write a story, a novel, or do TV episodes about family happenings. But it's something different to anchor family happenings in a general discomfort about life. Okay, and so that's the second reason why I like it. It kind of conflates two things: the family story, and this general representation of life being not worth living. Okay, so that's the second point. The third point is that the story gets compressed even more from family drama, from overall to family drama, into the sibling rivalry of Sonny and the narrator. And listen, I don't know about you, but I have my sibling rivalries too. And even though my sibling rivalry is by no means like Sonny and the narrators, there's still a lot of elements of similarity and a lot of connections there. And every time I read this, no matter how many times or how often, and all that sort of thing, I think about the difference, the similarities really between these guys and what I lived through. And so I think that's another reason why the story is so good. Now, you see the whole, how the story is really scaffolded very, 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 very carefully and with great expertise. Now, to make it even better and deeper and more interesting for us is the fact that the brothers are so different. And so you have one brother who's sort of judgmental and everyday. That is the narrator, who in the best of cases is not a very nice person, but, he's not evil either. He's sort of, your everyman, so to speak. But he is in contrast with Sonny. And Sonny has, if you like, two things going against him. One is that, he's an off and on drug addict. And number two, he's a very, very gifted artist. So in this relatively short story, a very short story actually, you get to see these two currents here. I'm still getting used to showing you my hands and getting some body language in here. I should probably have some kind of whiteboard or blackboard or something behind me, but I don't. Okay, so what you have is Sonny, who is at once a drug addict and also an artist, and you get to see these two things, one very negative and one very positive, evolving in him throughout the story. Now, connected to that is you get to see the consciousness of the narrator, who has to deal with both these things. And, he's kind of horrified by the drugs, and in a certain sense, he's horrified by the art, too. He sort of, those things are modes of existence that he has no connection with and has to really struggle to understand. Why does he struggle to understand? Because it's his brother, and because not in a moral sense is he striving to save Sonny. That's not the way he feels at all. But he is something, I think, more fundamental. That is, he is frustrated and angry, upset that he doesn't understand him very well, and that he realizes his brother doesn't like him so much at all. And so, for all that stuff, and there's a lot of deep psychology going on there. For all that stuff, Sonny tries to understand both the drugs and the art. Now, one of the best parts of the story has to do with the art, and this is, I'm losing track here. This is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th point here after the siblings dealing with art, is the nature of art, and you get a sense of what Sonny is going through, the mastery of his craft, then learning how to express and what there is to express. Now, to make a complicated story short, what Baldwin is showing is that what Sonny learns to express is his own anger and rage and sense of the meaninglessness of life, which is exactly what everyone in that story is going through, but they don't know what to do with it. They're stymied, they're paralyzed. All they're doing is walking around enraged. And Sonny figures it out. Not well, not thoroughly. He doesn't turn into a slick kind of person. On the contrary, but he does learn to express his deepest feelings, and this is what Baldwin is showing us now. In terms of the sibling rivalry, to back up a little bit, you see that in a way, this makes Sonny easier to understand for the brother, but not in any kind of definitive way. Also, the ability of Sonny at the end of the story to express himself is only provisional, and it's very fragile. And Sonny's understanding of sort of who he is and what he can do and what he wants to do is always sort of connected to the larger question, which is the last big theme in the story. That is to say, can Sonny make it work for a longer period of time? Can he overcome drugs? Can the conflict between the drugs on the one hand and the discovery of art on the other stabilize itself so Sonny is not at risk, or is Sonny just going to come back and be a drug addict? Crudely. Now, that's the sort of final part of the story. That is to say, can this, reconciliation, and can this resolution last? Well, there's some things that make it look as though it can. There's just as many that make it look as though it's not. That's not going to happen. Which is one of the greatnesses of this story. That is that it's like looking through a glass darkly. Just the way we all look at our lives. That is, we're not always so adept at dealing with our deepest problems, and that's sort of where we end up in the story, where the narrator thinks he understands, but no one would bet on that. And secondly, it looks as though Sonny's doing okay, but the same thing. For how long? The one thing that we do see is Sonny's triumph. That is to say, he made it. He overcame all that stuff. He overcame the sort of disagreeable nature of his brother. He overcame the sort of the shadows and the haunting of the past in order to find himself and figure out who he is and what he needs to do. The last thing that I wanted to mention is the part about Charlie Parker. And this is really part of Baldwin's genius, that this whole current of musical experimentation and musical discovery, led by a few dozen African-American musicians, basically, is there kind of in the background of the story. And we show that Sonny succeeds insofar as Charlie Parker and all those other musicians provide a current of art and a current of understanding that he can follow. And so that's why the story is not only about one person, but it's about art, and it's about the United States in the sort of 45 to 55 roughly a little bit back farther, 42 to 55 period of time. Okay, that's my little talk about the story. I hope that helps. I hope it wasn't too fast, but I wanted you to hear it from me. I mean, because